Let's move to the AFC East because I just think it's an interesting one. There's a lot of teams trying to address a lot of different needs. So I think there's a good chunk of conversation we can have. Let's start with the Buffalo Bills. Mark?
Yeah, it's pretty simple for me. You lose Diggs in this trade. Josh Allen's the best, arguably the best player in football, with the most talent and can do the most for your team. You've got to get him a weapon. You've got to get him a weapon that he can consistently just get the ball to, a guy that can get open, no matter what kind of coverage you throw at him, no matter if it's a speedy defensive back, a longer defensive back who's going to be more physical with you. You need someone who can do it all. I really like two guys for them at that receiver spot because I think you got to go receiver. You've got to get a number one receiver for him. I like Adonai Mitchell because of everything I just said, his ability to do kind of anything you need a receiver to do. And I really like Keon Coleman. I think if Mitchell's gone, Keon Coleman's a really good fit for them as well. You need a receiver where the quarterback play is going to make that receiver a little bit better, right? It's going to take a end of first round, second round receiver. It's going to make him play like he was a top 10 receiver, top 10 draft pick. It's going to make a Keon Coleman or a Donnie Mitchell play more like a Marvin Harrison Jr. That's what you need. And that's what Josh Allen will do. So you don't necessarily have to reach and try to move up and go get one of those guys. I think Josh Allen makes the right receiver a superstar if you get him in the right fit. And I like those two guys for Buffalo a lot.
Yeah, my one concern for AD Mitchell is just the fact that I feel like they shipped Diggs out because of drama, personality, selfishness related issues, and that's the tag that keeps getting, whether he deserves it or not. I've never hung out with the dude personally. I couldn't really tell you what his mentality is around getting the ball. But I think that that could be a cause for concern. While Keon Coleman, I think, I definitely lend to that being a better fit. Another one, potentially Troy Franklin. I feel like he's somebody that nobody's really been talking about a ton. And they're like,
Speedy.
wait, hold on. Speedy, fast, large wide receiver one with good hands, with a lot of experience. Why have we not been talking about this guy all draft season? I mean, with how loaded this receiver class is, I think it's bound to some of these guys that are probably going to be steals are not going to, they're not going to get drafted super high. They're not going to get talked about a lot because of the fact that this receiver class is so deep. Troy Franklin's one of those guys. And another one, Mark, that, you mentioned Josh Allen makes these guys better. I think he's a perfect example of a guy that Josh Allen could bring the best out of to play at the NFL level. New York Jets, they have a good chunk of needs. Where do you kind of sit as far as fits for, either Aaron Rodgers offensively or obviously that solid defense that has been very consistently good over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that you address the defense early in this draft. I don't think that's the priority. I know they have a defensive-minded coach. You got to protect Rodgers, man. I know that he got injured and it was a fluke thing, but Aaron Rodgers is going to make or break this team. He's going to make this team a Super Bowl contender if he stays healthy. I just think that that's the truth. Any team he's on, I don't care what's around him. Just so happens they have one of the better defenses in the league to go with what he can do. You got to protect him, and then you can kind of build the outsides from wherever you need to, But I think in the draft, you've got to try to address the offensive line, and J.C. Latham is a guy I think will be there for their first pick, and will probably maybe even be there later on if they want to move back up and come back into the first round and get another guy. But J.C. Latham, I just see being a good fit for them. His athleticism, obviously his size, playing at a high level in the SEC for many years, seeing guys that can absolutely get after the quarterback. That's what he's going to see in this division. And Aaron Rodgers needs somebody that he can trust, somebody that's been in big moments. You don't have time to develop a smaller school guy or a guy that's got question marks. This guy's done it at a high level for many years. He's been coached by some of the best coaches in college football. I think you go with the safe pick, J.C. Latham.
Yeah, I do think protecting Rodgers is a priority. I don't know if signing, two older tackles is really the solution to that, because if those guys get injured, you're running to the exact same problem. So I do agree that, and a guy like Latham too, a very sure-handed pass protector, can definitely get the job done there. Now, on the more fun side of things, receiver, tight end, right? We can have some conversations about that. What is the trope with Aaron Rodgers, right? And his receiving talent? doesn't like young receivers very much, right? That's like the big thing is like he struggles to gel with younger receivers. So there's one guy that I think as a rookie would be successful with Aaron Rodgers as a receiver, and that's Rome Odunze, because he is an NFL vet inside of a whatever 21, 22-year-old's body. And I just think the amount of options you get having him, Wilson, Williams, Conklin, all in the same offense. I mean, that's a pretty crazy core
John,
right there.
you make a good argument, but does it matter if Rodgers isn't playing because he got hurt?
I agree.
Because you can't protect him. You know, it's
Totally
like
agree. Totally
they
agree.
got weepens, man, and
Do you
I
try
know
to
how
like
exciting that can
sort
be.
of solve both problems with the Brock Bowers, right? Like, does that kind of, because I mean, he's a receiver that
I
plays
know
tight
he's
end.
he's a generational talent. I can't believe that Brock Bowers may fall in this draft, and I think that he will just because of needs, right?
Tight
And
end, positional value.
dude, he's a
Yeah.
generational talent. He'll be the best tight end drafted since Kelsey. You know, like if we're being honest, I really think that, and I don't think there's many people arguing that.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. It's tough because a lot of mock drafts have him going to New York, and I don't know. I would go offensive line. I think it's the best fit. I would even move back and take J.C. Latham and maybe get some more capital, and then get another receiver later in the first round or second round if you want to. There's talent, dude. There's talent out there.
Well, not only that, but 10's a pretty good spot. Like you could move back and potentially get an offensive lineman and Brock Bowers out of the situation, solve both of those problems. Now the problem is you need somebody that wants to trade up for a, X particular player at 10 for any sort of deal to work out like that. So obviously we're getting into the weeds of speculation at this point, but I digress. Next one, Patriots. They have needs all over the place. Really, there's not a single position offensively that they couldn't, stand to maybe try to upgrade somewhere at. So take your pick of the litter, but who do you think would be the most successful with the Patriots, who are rebuilding, have a new head coach for the first time in over 20 years, were the worst team in their division and one of the worst teams in the league last year? Like, what guy would actually have a positive impact on the wins and losses of this team, but, most likely to be successful in this, pretty shitty situation, one of the shittier situations you can go to, I'd argue.
Yeah, there's two things with New England, right? New coach, and obviously they're going to be a defense first team. That's just how their franchise is built. That's going to continue with the coach that they chose to hire. He's going to have the same philosophy, the Patriot way. The truth of the matter is this: the downfall of New England was not adapting and to the surroundings around the league of what's happening scheme wise, how to build a team. Like their plan, their program kind of expired. It ran its course and other teams adapted. They did not. So you got two things. You can draft a quarterback, right? And if you draft the right franchise quarterback, it kind of solves all your problems. I think Drake May is the best quarterback prospect in this class. I think he'll be there for this pick. And realistically, I do think that that's a legitimate guy that they may take. The second thing is this, right? If you don't go quarterback route, or if you go quarterback and then you want to move back in, another fit that I think absolutely fits them if they're able to be aggressive and do this. When was the last time the Patriots had a true number one receiver on their team? Dude, that no matter what quarterback is playing, like I'm talking like Randy Moss there's an asterisk next to that because that was like a free agency move, and Tom Brady obviously it was a match made in heaven, but it wasn't a long thing. Like that wasn't like a very long thing. These slot receivers, these underrated guys that Belichick used to find, like that only does so much, and you have to have the right quarterback for those guys to thrive. That's why Edelman, Welker, Chris Hogan, all those guys, Amendola, that's why they had great careers, in New England, because they thrived with Brady. You need a guy that's going to thrive if I'm throwing the ball or if you're throwing the ball. Okay, you need a Marvin Harrison. You need a Marvin Harrison Jr. That is like, to me, obviously anywhere he goes, I think he's going to be a star. But to go to New England and finally have a receiver one, and you become attractive for quarterbacks in free agency if that's the route you choose. You become a security blanket for a young quarterback if you do draft a quarterback as well. And you have one guy on your offense that you don't have to worry about. That's what New England needs.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you, because here's the problem with, I think Drake May could be a great fit for the Patriots. And I think most likely at 3, they are going to draft a quarterback. but I think that they need help everywhere. And I think drafting your franchise quarterback doesn't do a whole lot if he's throwing to nobody and you can't protect him, right? Again, the argument that we're trying to make here in this episode is where would people be the most successful at? I don't see a reality in which Drake May is super successful with the current infrastructure of the Patriots offense. And I don't think that's a hot take by any stretch of the imagination. Now,
Right.
what you could do, like what Mark said, go and grab a number one wide receiver or a franchise tackle. Joe Alt is one guy that it might be early to go grab him, but I mean, he's considered one of the safest picks in this draft. Have a guy that is just a rock for your offensive line for a decade to come. I think that could be the better move for the Patriots. And I think they should 100% consider a trade back if they're not fully sold on some of these quarterbacks, because you can load up talent and then try to solve the quarterback problem later with good receivers and a good offensive line. Look what that did for, a guy like Jared Goff, who was considered a lost cause when he came to Detroit. And now, yes, he's, again, one of the best offensive lines in the league, loaded with weapons around him, but he's a freaking successful quarterback because of it. And he would not thrive in a place like, I don't know, Washington or Patriots.
I don't think there's anybody that would thrive in New England right now unless they do something else around the quarterback spot. Truly.
Yeah. And it would be very on brand for the Patriots to trade back too. So that's the other thing. There's plenty of quarterback needy teams that will chuck draft capital at him to make that happen, I think.
The Dolphins, I mean, we're going to say this name again later on, but I think that having like Xavier Worthy on that team, it just excites me, dude. Having Waddle, Tyreek, and him and the same receiving core that can line up in motion and shift. I just can't imagine a defense that could handle that. I don't know what you'd have to do in the back end to be able to try to even contain that. And it's just like a touchdown could happen at any moment, whether it's a short route, intermediate, or deep ball. Like a touchdown could happen because the after the catch is crazy on all three of those guys. Tua's pretty accurate down the field. Obviously, you got to protect them, so you got to go offensive line at other points in the draft as well. But, oh, man, that would be – I'm just doing that because I think it'd be so fun. And Mike McDaniel, if he's sitting there, I don't know how he skips over trying to just collect all the rings.
It's just like I was going to say, like
just receiving core, dude, of speed.
Resisting the urge, exactly. It's the most fun. And yes, I think he would be wildly successful with the Dolphins because he would be the fourth receiving target, all that have sub 4.
Is it the smart thing to do? No, it's
no.
not.
The smart thing to do, and who would be
would it be a sick fit? Yes,
super sick. I think the smart thing to do and who would be instantly successful is a Jackson Powers Johnson. This will be one of maybe 3 or 4 times you hear this dude comp to a team. It's because he is just an anchor in the center of your offensive line. I was listening to some analyst a couple weeks ago. They were talking about like his body shape is just like a square. Like it's almost like he was designed to like just sit in the middle of an offensive line and be successful there. They obviously lost some interior offensive line guys through free agency. And so, plug and play, you have a franchise starting center for, again, the next decade. Like I think offensive linemen are the least sexy picks, but they make such a massive difference, right? Because as soon as you don't have a good O-line, everything falls apart incredibly quickly.